I don't know my natural father. My mom got remarried a year or so after I was born. My adopted father had a sixth grade education. They struggled for money. I grew up in public housing.
Florida Governor Rick Scott is much richer than he reported to state authorities. We now know that Scott's wife, Ann, owns at least $170 million worth of assets. Now, last June, Scott reported his own net worth to be at more than $232 million. Scott turned in a financial disclosure to the U.S. Senate yesterday. This as he's running for the Senate seat currently held by Democratic incumbent Senator Bill Nelson.
But I lived in America, and I had every opportunity there was. Thank goodness for a mom that cared and pushed. Doesn't matter what was going to happen. She was going to put food on the table, and I was going to succeed.
Rick Scott is really, I guess, the worst spokesperson. You know, his company's paid $1.7 billion in criminal and civil fraud. He had been forced to resign by his board just before that, but they had been bilking Medicare overpayments. They had, as the video notes that we produced, providing lousy coverage. They put profits above people in the systems they built. So to put this guy out in front with a $20 million ad campaign to scare people into thinking that we can't do better is really, it's sort of shocking, but that is what they do.
I mean, in America, anything's possible. So I worked. My first job is I delivered TV guides door to door, 50 copies a week. I made 4 cents a copy, first and second grade, something you never would let your kids do today.
Nowadays, the boys only get to see their marine life at home. Beds that make them feel under the sea.
I have 66.
You have 66 stuffed animals.
And stuffed animals, because seeing them in real life means seeing them like this. So they'll keep writing letters to Scott, hoping others will join in too.
To know that everything is dying and we need to do something about it.
I ran for governor because I care about the future of our state. I care about the future of all of our citizens. I think about my family. I think about my dad's face when his car got repossessed. I think about my mom, how hard it was for her to put food on the table. And so I think about those families. If those families can do well in our state, everybody does well. It drives you to every day get up and say, okay, what can I do today that's going to increase the chance that companies are going to hire more people in Florida?
During a staff meeting that Rick Scott was at, there was a comment made that our people working for Atlantic had to be mainstream. And as I began to think about that and other discussions that we had comments that he had made, I was very concerned about the potential for that to be discriminatory. So I sent him an email asking him, first I told him I felt this could be discriminatory, and I wanted to know what he meant by mainstream. And the next day after I sent that email, I was told by Karen Boying to no longer contact him, have no phone conversations with him. And prior to that time, the majority of the communication was initiated by Rick calling me and sending me emails, and weren't initiated by myself. And I was also told if I couldn't change my attitude, I had no future with the company.
Balancing the budget is a lot of work. You don't make a lot of friends balancing the budget. Almost 3 years as governor, nobody comes to my office and says, gosh, I think you should spend less money in an area. But you've got to live within your means. You've got to figure out, you've got to find efficiencies, you've got to find savings, you've got to measure all your agencies.
Governor Scott is proposing a 10% cut in education spending next year, roughly $700 per student statewide.
When you're taking out $700, it's not $700 per classroom, it's per student. So you're talking about thousands of dollars less per classroom that our schools have to work with.
It adds up to $108 million in cuts in Hillsborough County alone, $86 million in Pinellas County schools, $62 million in Polk, $44 million in Pasco County, and $29 million in Manatee.
Make sure that you spell it correctly.
Hillsborough schools have endured years of budget cuts already. Some school board members are worried the next round could include layoffs.
It's insanity what's happened in Washington. What new regulation? What new tax? What new attack? What new lawsuit will the federal government throw at Florida that will impact our ability to create more jobs? Our citizens want jobs. They want to live their dream. The dream is not having government dictate what you get to do. The dream is not having the government tell you what job you're going to have.
You don't care about working people. You should be ashamed to show your face around here. 1 million jobs, great. Who here has a great job? Or is looking forward to finishing school? You really feel like you have a job coming up? You stripped women of access to public health care. Shame on you, Rick Scott. We depend on those services. Rich people like you don't know what to do. When poor people like us need health services, you cut them. Shame on you, Rick Scott.
I want our state to be number one. The number one place for your family to get a job, the number one place for your children to get a great education. We're going to have the jobs, we're going to have the most growth.
Buy the Land became a rallying cry for some residents along Florida's Treasure Coast. Last 4th of July, they skipped putting out beach chairs or building sandcastles to send a message to politicians.
There's thousands of people out here to show our support to save our river. Send the water south.
The only viable solution is to create a pathway for the water south into the Everglades.
Our legislature has to buy the land and get a flowway built so we have no more discharges to the coast.
My mom and my dad wanted something better for me, and I want people to have the same shot I had. Republican governors are driving America's country.